Like there's a bit of a traffic, but here we go.
Hi, welcome to Faster Forward Live. And with me today are two of my favorite artists and two of my favorite people, actually, Charles Vess and Ruth Sanderson. Vess. What did I say? Charles Vess and Ruth Sanderson. Hi, guys. Welcome to Fast Forward.
Hey, you.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, good to see you again. It's been a while, and oh well, here we are, virtual. And the first thing I want to bring up before we get into any talking of art and writing is to congratulate Ruth because she is now a grandma. How's that feel?
It's my dream come true. It's actually one of my dreams is to be a grandmother. And I never thought it would happen, but Whitney delivered. Back in May and actually delivered in two sets of that. And
That's
a lovely
great.
grandson who is now close to 9 months old.
Wow. How exciting for you.
It's very exciting.
Have you been getting to see him at all?
A lot. They're 15 minutes away, so we're in the same pod and we babysit all the time.
Great.
Whitney has appointments and we have them for dinner all the time. In fact, we just had them for lunch. So.
Oh, how wonderful. I'm so happy for you.
Casey cried in the background, so.
I'm so happy for you. I was so thrilled when you mentioned that. So, well, let's get started talking about art and writing and stuff. One of the reasons I wanted to get the two of you on together is because there's a lot of similarities in the kind of things you're interested in, but your styles are very different. And one of the things that you both are into and draw and write about are fairy tales and folklore. And I was curious about what drives you towards that aspect of things. But we talked with Charles. Why don't we start with you? What brings you to folklore and fairy tales?
I was just writing an introduction to this book, The Art of Stardust, that's coming out in the fall. And I was talking about that. And also, I'm remembering that when I was a child, my mom's told me that I wouldn't let her read fairy tales to me. I would always tell her, no, Mom, no. And I think she never knew why. I think it was just that they were too vivid. My imagination was too much. I could see it too easily. But in college, I discovered Arthur Rackham's illustration and art, and he did mostly folk and fairy tale. And I just followed up on that and started reading as much as I could find. It was a lot harder in the late 60s, early 70s to find anything. There weren't any art books on all these people that you get to see nowadays. And there was no internet, of course, so you couldn't just pop someone's name in and watch all these images show up or find out what book you needed. You just, it was sort of a Sherlockian, you'd hear someone mention some book and you go read that, and there might be an introduction to it that would talk about other books, and you keep following that trail. And I guess I was lucky enough to run into Terry Windling in the late 70s, and then that was the floodgates open.
And Ruth, you had your childhood running around the woods and in what I think is the most amazing thing ever, the abandoned theme park.
Yes.
So is that some of what drew you to folklore and fairy tales? Is that kind of childhood?
Well, it reinforced what I already loved. My father, my grandmother was a librarian, and so my father had a lot of books. So we had a lot of copies of his books in our house, Hardy Boys and Rover Boys and whatever. But my precious book was the complete volume of Grimm's Fairy Tales, and I just read that over and over and over. And then, playing in the woods kind of just reinforced my love of both the woods and just imagination. And yeah, this abandoned theme park was incredible. I think it was, I think they opened it 1 year and it just tanked. So it just was abandoned. And we went and played there. And there was a house, a stone cottage, which to me, it instantly was like, looked like the cottage of the Seven Dwarves. And that, that cottage, I went and visited just maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I got in touch with my childhood friend. We're still very good friends. And we wanted to see if there was any remnants left. And that cottage is now a ruin. It was a ruin back then too, but is even more of a ruin, but was still there. And the people who bought the property turned it into sort of a very eccentric farm with animals, and they used like the Santa's workshop as little barns for the animals. And then this stone cottage was just still there, and it was.
Did you leave breadcrumbs behind you so you could find it?
No, but I remember vividly singing from The Wizard of Oz, like lions and tigers and bears, oh my. We would skip down the road to this place singing that. So it was just a magical way to grow up. And that stayed with me. And then, always wanted to illustrate fairy tales. When I saw Paul Zielinski's Hansel and Gretel win the Caldecott, and he did it in this realistic oil painting style. And I went, and there were no books like that. Nobody illustrated books, in oils and, traditional style. And I went, is this possible? Is it possible? And then Jane Yolen actually wrote a version of Sleeping Beauty. That was my first illustrated fairy tale. And then I connected up with an editor at Little Brown in Boston and started retelling and illustrating my own line of fairy tales. So.
Yeah. And you've been like a book illustrator primarily pretty much your whole career.
Yes.
Which has been, both of you have careers that are like, been going for what, 45 years or something?
Yes.
Or more? And
yes.
That's
76.
Yeah.
Is that 45? Ooh, it is.
I don't have my calculator with me. I was a math major, not arithmetic.
Scary. It's a little scary.
When were your first illustrations, Charles? Mine were 76. When were yours?
I did commercial animation for 3 or 4 years, 30-second commercials.
Oh.
And then moved to New York and ran into Robert Wiener, who you all know, before he was Donald Grant Books. And he said, here's $750, write and draw me a book. So I did. And it came, The Horns of Elfland. It came out in 1979.
Yeah.
I love that. What year was that? It was 79.
And I'd already been in New York for a couple of years, starving away.
You've been doing comics, right?
Doing some comics. Comics are when the first time way back in the 60s, I saw a splash page on a Fantastic Four, and Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had signed it. And that's when it had never occurred to me before that actual people drew these things, right? Duh. And I remember looking at that and being struck by, these are people. If these people can draw it, then I can draw those.
Because you've been drawing since you were like crawling.
Always drawing, yeah.
Yeah.
But
and you roomed with Michael Kaluta.
Yeah. I met him in Richmond, Virginia, and then moved to New York, and we shared an apartment for 12 years. So it was quite an education on many fronts.
When was this?
1976 to 1988.
Yeah.
That
must have been something.
Yeah, it was. All my friends worked in the concession stands at the Broadway theaters, so I got to go to opening night parties on the 20th Century and Hair and all these things. That was I would be broke. I would have to walk to the party. Then you would go inside and work coat check for a few minutes and then slip inside. And there would be Andy Warhol and any number of actors you'd recognize, and all the food and all the drink you could have, and then you'd have
and
to
other
get home.
things, I'm sure.
Yes, and other things. Sometimes you'd wake up in your bed in the morning and not remember getting there.
Yeah.
I was just happy I woke up in my bed.
Yeah.
So
That's
it was
amazing.
an experience.
And you wrote and drew some Spider-Man and
Yes,
I think and things
all
like that.
Yeah.
So
and with the superheroes, I did a lot of superhero work. And what it was that after 5 or 6 years of this, and realizing that was people expected me to do, and that my career trajectory would just keep going that way. But superheroes are all about who has the biggest fist, and the resolution to any problem is who's got the most muscles. And I just don't think that way. And I went, I got to do something else. So I talked the Donning Company, small company in Eastern Virginia, into letting me illustrate A Midsummer Night's Dream. It sort of all started happening from there.
Yep.
You've had
we have I think your puck. It's hanging up
yes,
over there.
You do. My
it's hanging
portrait
up
of
in the
my
bedroom
mom.
over there.
Yes.
What a great career you've had, Charles. Oh my gosh.
And I've got Ruth's scratchboard she did when she stayed at our house back in 2014, Road Fantasy?
Road Fantasy.
Yeah, she house sat while we were running the art show and then gave us this scratchboard, this beautiful scratchboard, and that's hanging up over there.
Yes, she has done a few of those. They're pretty stunning.
Yeah, I know. There's a question for you, Ruth. You started doing oils and doing all your illustrations oils, and then a number of years ago, it seemed like you just switched over to scratchboard. And what brought that on? Because your scratchboards are astounding.
What brought that on was the desire I had for over 40 years. From the time I was in art school, I fell in love with a Victorian fairy tale by George MacDonald called The Golden Key. And it was I had a copy illustrated by Maurice Sendak, just, maybe 8 or 10.
You got that book?
Beautiful book, little book. But it's an eccentric story and just weird, but I've always loved it. And I always wanted to illustrate it and make it into a picture book, but it was just too darn long. At one point I tried to edit it down, and then it's like, no, I don't want to edit, this person's work, even though, it's public domain. But so then I got the idea of breaking it into chapters and making it a chapter book, and illustrating it in black and white. And when I thought about what these black and white pictures would look like, I wanted them really evocative and have depth and just, I don't know, just, it's like a light bulb went off and it's like scratchboard. It just came to me. And I had done one in my life, like one scratchboard in my life. And so the first one I did won a Chesley, and so, and after I did it, I went, wow, I think I'm onto something here. and I just want to do scratch. That was maybe 2012 when I started. It took me 3 or 4 years to get all, because I did 45 pictures and I did them in between other projects and finally got a publisher. So it took 3 or 4 years to get it published. But then after that, I just started doing personal pieces in scratchboard and selling them at conventions. And it's like, I just love scratchboard more than oils. And I never thought I would ever say that. I always loved black and white films, black and white photography, and scratchboard has that, capacity to have the depth all the way from white to black, that, so you can really create pieces that have, that have a lot of depth and impact. So the impact, even of a film noir, black and white film or black and white photography, I feel it doesn't need color. So, and it's, it's like archetypal or something. I don't know what, but I love it.
Well, there's also something really liberating about if you've worked in one medium for years and years and years to use another one. Mm-hmm. And it's I was working on a children's picture book called Driftwood Days, and it was right before Earthsea, and I hit a stone wall. I couldn't get it done. I got it drawn, I got everything done, and then I couldn't color it because it just seemed like I knew how to do it, and that was boring. I wanted to be surprised. And so I worked on the Earthsea book. That was about 4 years of work. And then with very understanding editors at the Children's Book Company, and finally went back to it, and I just decided I'd use colored pencils. And suddenly everything was exciting and fun. It's a 36-page children's book. It worked out really, really nice. And I've gone back to using the colored pencils on other things. It's just a fun, almost immediate. Whereas, the colored ink sometimes will take, depending on the deadline, 4 or 5 days a week longer to do a painting. But these are, it's drawing, except it's in color, and it's really fun.
Yeah. Well, that's something with both of you. You both, in some sense, like to step out of your comfort zone. And I think you explain why, because it frees you up doing something new as an artist, I think, and you can see that in both of your work.
Well, if you're doing a piece of art and you know exactly how to do it, you're slightly bored, and that's in the painting. The viewer can look at that and they go, oh, yeah. So if you're excited, the viewer will be excited. That's what you're trying to do.
And something you've both done is writing, because you're not just artists, you're both writers. And Ruth, you've done a number of books in fairy tales, and you've written an original fairy tale, The Enchanted Wood. And Charles, you've done, what is it, The Queen of Summer's Twilight, which has no illustration,
nothing whatsoever.
Nothing but words.
Nothing but words. 90,000 words.
I loved it. I thought it was great, Charles. I really, really, really enjoyed it.
I'm gonna probably self-publish it this year sometime.
Oh,
when I retire. I'm 70 in June. I'm going to retire, right?
You're an artist. You never retire.
I know. I can't. It's too much fun.
So I'm at about 70,000 words and counting on a retelling of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Ooh.
Interestingly enough, from a dwarf's point of view, and I think it was inspired by that childhood, that place. That I've never illustrated that fairy tale, and I've never wanted to, but for some reason, in the past number of years, I've been wanting to tell a different sort of a story, but inspired by the Snow White story. It's called A Dwarf's Tale.
So did you? I did a 5-page black and white comic book version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs DC is called The Big Book of Grimm. And it was all these different artists doing little books of Grimm. And I know it took me a while to kick Walt Disney out of my head.
Yes.
You're like, that was the only fantasy when I was growing up in the 50s. And you'd see it. And so when I would start trying to picture the dwarves, it's like, boop, here come these big, funny guys with big noses. It was tough. Did you find that?
And people ask me, when I say it's a dwarf's tale, and they go, which one? Wrong question. They don't have names in the original.
Yes.
Yeah, Disney named them, but my dwarves, no dopies and no sneezies.
Dopey, the true story.
My dwarf makes the magic mirror for the queen, not
Okay.
knowing what the consequences will be. And boy, is he sorry. So,
Since we're
Yeah.
talking about new stuff, why don't we talk a little bit about things you guys have coming out soon and all that? Charles, you've got a couple of things coming out later this year,
Yeah.
right?
There's a book
Honeycomb.
called Honeycomb that will be out in May from Saga Press here in the States and Orion in the UK. And it's written by Joanne Harris, who wrote Chocolat and many other books. And it's little tiny vignettes that feel like, at first, feel like separate stories. And why am I reading all this? But they slowly start intruding on each other and becoming a really interesting plot by the end of it. And I did.
I love that kind of thing.
It's very nice. And I did 13 color plates. There it is now. And 30 black and white pieces for it. It took a little over a year. And it was really exciting. It's going to be a nice book. And then I've also, for the last 3 or 4 years, been putting together this Art of Stardust book, which is a 160-page, 9 by 12 art book with the reproductions. The paintings will look the way they're supposed to look, and I'll be talking about how they're made and why they were made, and what I was doing and what I was thinking about. Neil's written an introduction. It'll be really cool. So
Wow.
that's the two. It's been 2 or 3 years since the Earthsea book came out, so and I've had nothing out, so it's kind of exciting. Well, I had a children's picture book, sorry, but this will be exciting to have this out.
Yeah. And Ruth, you've got, I think, you're working on a Jane Yolen.
Yeah, I don't know if Kathy just wants to show my slides. I can just sort of talk a tiny bit about them. So what's exciting is that I wanted to, with the scratchboard, start getting into different, different venues. And I was contacted by the publisher, Centipede Press. They do limited editions of books that have already been published. So this is The House Next Door, which was a novel from, I believe, written in the 70s. And so this is a wraparound cover for that. And the next slide, so I did it in scratchboard and then I added color digitally. So, and did some digital work, which this really is my first digital cover ever. So I'm, with the base drawing of scratchboard, but it's a really kind of it's horror, it's straight horror. And, I've never done anything like it.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And then
that's what's
book I
behind
did
you.
for Centipede was this one, which I just won a silver award at from the online competition. It's Infected by Art.
Yeah. And
it is another wraparound for Centipede, a horror, and there's the color version. So this was the first one I did. So I was a little timid on the color, although I just thought that the picture was so strong as it was. I didn't want to, color all this stuff in the background. So I just did kind of minimal color. And it also, horror stories. This is a stamp for a jacket for Dune, for a version of Dune. And another digital, I did the drawing in pen and ink and then I colored it digitally, and it'll be printed on cloth for an edition of Dune, also by Centipede. So that's another project. And then the next one's, I think, okay, so this is the Jane Yolen book. I did 10 interiors for this. It's called Arch of Bone. It's a middle grade novel, kind of a coda Jane calls it a coda to Moby Dick. So a boy who's the son of the first mate, when he finds out his father's been killed, takes off in his own boat, gets shipwrecked, and he starts having dreams. He ends up on an island with this arch of bone and has dreams about Moby Dick and his father and what have you. So I really had a lot of fun illustrating that. And Jane is really happy with it. So,
Jane, I adore Jane.
Jane what?
I adore Jane.
Oh, so yeah, she's just it's her 400th book, I think, is coming out this month. I was mad because it's like this might have been the 400th,
that all,
but it's coming out later this year, so it'll probably be her 500th book. No,
amazing! It's amazing.
I remember when her 300th book came
last week, right?
Yeah, but she's a delight. Her words are inspiring always.
And that's something else about the two of you. You both have had these, what I think of as these incredible collaborations with writers. You seem to like link into them because Ruth, you have Jane Yolen, and Charles, you've done, I don't know how many books with Charles DeLint.
Yes, with DeLint and
Neil
Gaiman. And the Earthsea thing was definitely a collaboration. Yeah. So I love it. I know some artists don't want to talk to the writer at all, want to just do whatever they want to do. I don't quite understand that. There are other ones that don't think words are important, that only the art is, which I think is a little foolish myself, but takes all kinds. But it's when collaboration works, you get a better finished product than either one of the individuals could do by themselves, I think. It can sometimes not work also. Bear that in mind.
Yeah. Now, why don't we show some of the art from your website, Charles, since we showed a bunch of Ruth, because it is video.
Okay.
So visuals are important.
Can you scroll down a little bit? The one on the left, of course, is from Stardust.
Yep.
It was actually the first painting I did before there was even a book written. I think Neil had written 3 or 4 sentences and told me that Stardust would be a woman that falls out, a star that falls out of the sky with light blonde hair and sparkles all around her, and she falls to fairy and becomes a young woman. And that was it. and we had to sell this project. So I did a lot of work without having any story to base it on. And there's interesting stuff. The one over to the right, go up, move up, or move down. I guess it's down. Over there on the right is the cover of The Cats of Tanglewood Forest, which I did with Charles DeLint. And it had 76 color paintings in the book. It was for Little Brown. The piece on the left, the brownish one, is from a book I did with Neil Gaiman called Instructions. And the piece just below that is one I did as a commission. He wanted to buy the Stardust painting, but I didn't want to sell it, so he said, just do something like it. So I did this picture, and he was blown away when he got it by the detail and how big it was. And not only did he pay me a very nice price for it, but he also gave me an Arthur Rackham black and white original.
Wow.
And that is pretty fun. The one on the right, the vertical one, is I used to go to this outdoor fairy festival called Spoutwood in Pennsylvania, and the one thing I really loved about it is I would always wake up or just have these great ideas while I was there for drawings, and there was a woman that was going there. Her fairy name is Dancing Hands, and that's her sitting on the tree in the middle. And I just woke up one morning with this idea in my head, and it rained a lot that day, so I drew it in the tent where I was. I did quite a few pieces like that there. It was a great place to go. Over on the left is Thomas the Rhymer. It was a commissioned piece. And they go on and on, don't they? The one with the on the right is called Gathering the World, and it's a personal piece. One of my favorite paintings I've ever done, and it's an old Earth Mother showing a young girl how to weave new worlds out of old. What it is. So.
Wow.
And the other two pieces are Earthsea.
Yeah.
I did a lot of pieces for that.
Yeah, that was an astounding book.
It was.
You've displayed a lot of the art from Earthsea at conventions, and wow.
Yeah. Well, and working with Ursula was amazing. So.
That had to have been. And Ruth, there's another writer that you have collaborated with quite a number of times, writing these horse books. And that's your daughter, Whitney. There's a whole series of the Horse Diaries that I think she wrote and you illustrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great fun.
That must have been a lot of fun.
And our couple of our horses posed as the main
Yeah, and horses have been a big part of your life.
Immortalized our horses as well as, yeah, they were really, really fun to do. And she wrote five of the books in the series. And, I was happy to do them. It was almost like, be careful what you wish for, because right before, they offered it to me, I was just sort of daydreaming about, gosh, it'd be fun to do horse stories again, and I don't know if you believe in the power of intention at all, but sometimes when I have thoughts about something, like, it sort of materializes. It's a little uncanny. And maybe it's coincidence, but whatever. So,
or maybe
15 years later, I was still illustrating them, and the series is finished now. And and I'm sorry for Whitney, although I don't think she'd have time to write right now. She's very busy with her mother, and I'm sort of on to other things. And I like illustrating horse stories, but I really want to do more of my own personal work, and mostly in scratchboard and these covers and more adult work, and so I'm moving on to other things. Would like to finish my novel, but it was a great run. There were 16 in the series, so that kept me busy for a long time.
It's great. So why don't we talk about what you guys are working on now? When you finish this and you go, Charles, when you drive over to your studio and all that, what are you guys going to be working on?
I'm doing a cover and 2 black and white interiors for Subterranean Press's limited edition of the 10,000 Doors of January, which happened mostly because I read this book and loved it, and just got online on Facebook and started raving about it. And within a week or so, heard from Subterranean Press, Bill Schaefer, who said, "Would you like to illustrate it?" I went, "Yes, that would be great." And the other thing is, and I'm not quite sure what I'll be doing yet, but I'm doing a dedicated pack of 6 cards for Wizard of the Coast. It'll just be my art. We'll see. I have no idea. I have a big stack of paper to read all about it, so I haven't read it yet.
So
I just said
you're going to be doing something, you don't know what it is yet.
Well, I said I want trees, standing stones, green men in the middle of the woods, all that. I said, this is what I want to draw. They went, okay.
All that Charles Vess stuff.
Yes.
The Green Man.
Yes.
You guys have both done Green Man, haven't you?
Yes.
Brilliant,
Yes, we
beautiful.
The turn of the millennium, everyone did Green Man.
Yeah.
Right? It was like,
Yeah.
we were all afraid, Y2K, the world's going to end. But then this image of life will continue, and it takes the form of the Green Man. And, we go to conventions, and there were 20 artists doing Green Men. It was uncanny.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's when that happened. And I loved your guys' work on that. They were
I
so
have one of
different,
Kyle's
but
on
they
my wall, and
captured
here's
it.
one of mine on his wall.
Yes.
Cool.
Very happy to say.
So, want to
Yes,
know what
Ruth.
I'm working on?
Yeah.
So I seem to be the darling of Centipede Press, which thank you. He gave me a version of Dracula to illustrate the cover for. It's called The Powers of Darkness, and there's a 50-page long introduction to explain what it is. So I won't go that far, but it's basically was a Swedish serialization of Dracula that came out like the year after the original novel came out, and they serialized it. But recently they translated it back into English, I believe, and all of a sudden realized that, oh, this is different, and it's twice as long as the original Dracula. Who knew? So they don't quite know if it's got his name on it, but they're not thinking that there might have been somebody else who kind of enhanced it a little, even though it sounds very similar, but there's all sorts of different things in it. And it's going to be illustrated by a bunch of different people for the interiors, but I'm doing the cover in Sketchboard. So I'm very excited about that. That's next on my board. And
Dracula sounds like a good subject for Scratchboard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm doing the castle on the hill, and then just in the cloud, Dracula looking on. So it's basically the castle, big long, and then the little horse and carriage coming across to enter the gate. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So, and then the other thing I'm working on is a book I started a couple years ago, and I set it down because I had a trip to Paris that I had to cancel last year.
Wonder why.
I'm doing a biography of the French artist Rosa Bonheur, who from the 19th century did my favorite painting in the world, which has been hanging at the Metropolitan since the late 1800s. It's called The Horse Fair, and it's a 8 by 16 foot painting of magnificent draft horses. And this woman in 1850 dressed like a man to be able to let into the Paris horse market so she could sketch. And she sketched for a year and a half in preparation for doing this painting. And so the book is a biography of her life, but it's called Rosa's Horses. So it really focuses on her, her love of horses and her, fantastic. Look at
Kathy.
that.
Kathy is amazing. Kathy is a goddess.
I did get to go to her museum, which is south of Paris, but I was going to go back and do more research there. But there's a painting on her easel in her studio. She died suddenly, so she was in the middle of a painting, which was another huge horse painting. But it showed her process. It's like half just drawn out
cool. Yeah.
With a brush, and then part of it's finished. So you can see the work in progress, like up close and personal. And I did take a bunch of pictures of it. So I'll be able to show her process of illustrating this painting. And I don't think anybody else could do this but me. In terms of, you know what I mean? Because I'm an academic painter too, so I can paint her painting it and make it look like it's her painting. So be
so cool.
Art forgery here. But at the very last page will be a reproduction from the mat of the actual painting, which is amazing. They actually give out high resolution images and for no charge, so you can reproduce it.
Oh,
in the
so
book.
many cool things coming from you
Anyway,
guys.
so
You're gonna
that's
take
my
all my
year.
money.
That's my year.
You're gonna take all my money. That's what it is.
Oh boy.
So it's fun, we artists, just like writers, we don't retire, we just keep going. It's what we do.
Yeah.
We have to create, right, Charles?
It's more of what you are than what you do.
I'm gonna. We have bought this new house and moved into it this summer, but it's only 2 acres, but it's right on a river, and at the back end of the 2 acres, I'm gonna build a studio. So I'll have it on property, and that'll be good, and it's really kind of exciting figuring out what it's going to look like, and how I'm going to pay for it. Sell.
Keep trying.
Draw.
I just hope.
Draw like the wind.
Is WorldCon going to be in person?
I don't know.
That makes me so sad if we have to go virtual.
They're still deciding. I think if it's in person, it may be in December. But the hotel's been sold, so they're trying to figure out.
Where is it this year?
DC.
Oh, DC. That's right.
I've been waiting for 2 years since you announced it.
I know.
I was so excited to go back to DC.
But I know. I'm hoping it's going to be in person, but we'll have to see. It may be virtual. I'm glad I'm not on the committee and having to make this choice and having to go figure out how to do it all. I can sit back and watch. Well, I'm kind of old, and so I don't like to get let the young kids do it. The ones in their 50s.
Well, that would be fun. I could drive to that.
I know.
Yeah, I usually don't do them unless they're on the East Coast.
Yes, yeah. I actually had never been to a WorldCon until I went to the one in Dublin. Never, in all these years, it was just really bizarre to go. I've never been. So, and
it's
that was
World
really
Fantasy that I always hung out with you at.
I've been going to that a lot, but
yeah,
I haven't gone anywhere, done anything. So
amazing. Well, I think we're about out of time, and this has been a load of fun.
Okay.
And I want to remind people, everyone watching, to go down and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps us a lot. Click the like for this because that helps us a lot. And if you click on the little bell on YouTube, then you will get emails that let you know when we got new stuff coming up. So all that stuff that helps us and lets you know, and we're going to keep doing these things. So, Ruth, Charles, thank you so much for taking time to join us. I really appreciate it. It was fun. And this is Mike Zipser from Faster Forward saying, take care, wear your mask, wash your damn hands.